The man accused of kidnapping and murder Ashanti will appear in federal court tomorrow.
13 News Now investigative reporter Laura Geller uncovered new disturbing details in this case.
Well, we've already told you authorities say right now Eric Brown is not competent to stand trial, but new court documents reveal they believe his mental health has actually deteriorated behind bars. Tomorrow, attorneys will argue about the decision by doctors at the federal prison to forcibly medicate the Navy veteran.
These new court records give us a timeline of Eric Brown's behaviors, which prosecutors describe as odd and concerning. According to the motion, the concern started during the investigation of Ashanti Billie's kidnapping from JEB Little Creek, while law enforcement watched Brown. Those behaviors continued after his arrest. While in jail, the U.S. Attorney's Office lists lying still or standing and staring at the wall, smearing feces and urine in his mouth and on his body, expressing concerns about other inmates plotting to kill him, and only agreeing to consume Gatorade and Ensure, resulting in a loss of 18 pounds in 1 month. In December, when authorities moved Brown to the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, they say he constantly denied that he was charged with a crime, denied hiring a lawyer, demanded to be released immediately, stating that he has been kidnapped. And most recently, this month at FMC Butner, a nurse says Brown had covered his cell window. When she looked at video from inside the cell, Brown was standing naked and motionless in front of the door. He stayed that way for at least 30 minutes. Doctors at the federal prison conducted a hearing and have proposed forcibly medicating Brown, but the Navy veteran's attorneys argue the procedure was flawed and want a judge to hear the evidence.
And a hearing to debate these issues is set for tomorrow morning. Of course, 13 News Now will be inside the courtroom and bring you the latest details as we uncover them. Laura Geller, 13 News Now.